Thank you very much for being with us, for your time. On behalf of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, the Ukrainian Agri-Council, and the German-Ukrainian Agriculture Policy Dialogue, a very warm welcome to everyone. Today, time is of the essence, both for the topics we're discussing and also for the workshop, because we really want to have all the time necessary for the discussions. So I will be just opening that first part of our workshop. I would like also to take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to the MEP who is hosting us today, Paulo de Nascimento Cabral from Portugal, to Roberto and to the entire team who helped us to put that together. That's just for the welcoming words. And I'm really delighted to have with us also the chairman of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. So I will just go to you, Janusz, first. And sorry, I will first starting by the video of Paulo, and then we'll be going to you.
Let me begin by thanking Emmanuel Mikos, Director General of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, Andrei Dikum from the Ukrainian Agri-Council, and Olga Trofimtseva from the German-Ukrainian Agricultural Policy Dialogue for co-organizing this important discussion on the economic and environmental future of Ukrainian agriculture and its path towards European integration. Unfortunately, I cannot join you in person today, as I am currently on a parliamentary mission to South Africa in my capacity as Vice Chair of the Delegation for the Relations with South Africa. Nevertheless, I wanted to contribute to this important debate through this video message, but sorry for that. First and foremost, I would like to express my solidarity with the Ukrainian people. For more than 4 years, Ukrainians have demonstrated extraordinary courage, resilience and determination defending their country, their democracy and our shared European values. Thank you for that, and Slava Ukraini. The opening of accession negotiations in December 2023 marked an historic step. It also requires us to address the challenges about what Ukraine's integration means for European agriculture and for the common agricultural policy. We need to work together to guarantee that this transition could be as smooth as possible. Ukraine is an agricultural powerhouse with more than 41 million hectares of agricultural land, including almost 33 million hectares of arable land. It possesses some of the most fertile soils in the world. Before the war, agriculture represented over 40% of the country's export and played a critical role in feeding global markets. Today, an estimated 400 million people around the world depends directly or indirectly on Ukrainian agricultural exports, particularly in Africa, Middle East and South Asia. Yet, the challenges facing the sector are enormous. The war is leaving deep scars on Ukraine's agricultural landscape. The information that we have is that millions of hectares are already contaminated by mines. According to international estimates, rebuilding the agricultural sector will require more than $56 billion, while the mining alone could cost a further $32 billion. Agriculture has always been one of the most sensitive chapters in the enlargement negotiations. Concerns regarding competition, market integration, and the future financing of the common agricultural policy are understandable. Ukraine's agriculture structure differs significantly from that of most of the member states. While the European Union is largely built around family farming, an average of 11 hectares, Ukraine combines large-scale farming enterprises with a strong network of medium-sized farms that are highly productive and export-oriented, an average between 200 and 2,000 hectares. According to the internal council study, if we apply the current CAP rules to Ukraine, this will cost 19.6 billion in CAP payments over a 7-year period, leading to an estimated 20% reduction in farm subsidies for existing member states. These differences require preparation, transitional arrangements, and a pragmatic approach. They cannot be ignored. However, the debate cannot focus solely on the cost of enlargement. It must also consider the strategic benefits of this enlargement. At a time when the European Union is seeking to strengthen its food security and strategic autonomy, Ukraine can become an even more important partner. The EU remains heavily dependent on imports on feed proteins, fertilizers, and other key agricultural inputs. And Ukraine's agricultural potential can help to reduce some of these dependencies while reinforcing the resilience of the European food systems. The question is therefore not whether Ukraine should become part of the European Union. The question is how can we prepare better for that future in a way that is fair, balanced and beneficial for all. This means supporting reconstruction today, encouraging investment and innovation, promoting regulatory convergence, and ensuring that Ukrainian farmers are progressively integrated into European standards and value chains. If managed correctly, Ukraine's accession will not weaken EU's agriculture, it will strengthen it. So to conclude, my final message is one of optimism. The road to integration will be demanding, of course, but it is a road that is worth to take. So thank you a lot for your attention, and I wish you a very productive and fruitful session.
Thank you very much to Paulo, and to keep that optimism, now I'm passing the floor to Janusz Potocki.
Distinguished colleagues from European Parliament, representatives of Ukraine, colleagues, friends, it's quite encouraging view on the full room to start with that. I would like to welcome you to the Forum for the Future of Agriculture and to this important discussion on the roads to integration and the future of Ukrainian agriculture. We meet the defining moment for Europe. The decisions we make today about Ukraine are not only about agriculture, trade, or accession. They are about the kind of Europe we want to build for the future generations. They are about solidarity. They are about resilience, security, sustainability. Throughout my professional life, I have witnessed moments when Europe was asked to demonstrate courage and vision. I have had the privilege of leading the negotiating team for accession of my country, Slovenia, to the European Union. I remember well the hopes, concerns, uncertainties that accompanied the process. Integration was not simply a technical exercise or aligning legislation or opening the markets. It was a profound transformation of institutions, economies, and mindsets. It required trust, commitment, and the shared belief that our future would be stronger together than apart. Let me share with you some main lessons learned and some decisions taken which were specific for our accession approach and proved very useful. Our negotiating team, which I was chairing, was composed from professionals who were not politically associated. And we were building a coalition across political parties. Our negotiating positions were not confidential, but public and published. By that, we have simply provided transparency and avoided potential speculations, which are common part of any complex process like accession is. Negotiating positions were not adopted only by the government, like in majority of other candidate countries, but also in the responsible parliamentary committee. Creating ownership for positions taken in advance is much, much better than the hard work to get the support ex post. And do not forget, negotiations are more difficult at home than with the European Union. And you are negotiating with member states, not with the Commission. European Commission is there to help both sides as an honest broker in the process. I know times are different now, that they were during our accession process, but the fact that all the work to prepare the country well for the membership is still essential, and that all necessary reforms one has to undergo are actually in the first place in your interest, remains the same as it was. Agriculture was in negotiations one of the most complex areas, as it was also closely related chapter of environment. Both contain major part of acquis communautaire due to the deep alignment in both areas on the EU level. I do still remember sincere celebrations in our team when those chapters were finally agreed and closed. Today, Ukraine, as we know, faces a challenge of much greater magnitude. It is pursuing European integration while defending its sovereignty, its democracy, and its people against aggression. Few countries in modern European history have had to undertake such a profound transformation under such extraordinary circumstances. I'm glad to notice that last week, on June 15, EU and Ukraine opened first accession negotiating cluster related to the rule of law and fundamental rights. For those of us who lived through the conflicts in the Balkans, the images from Ukraine are deeply familiar and deeply painful. We know what war does to communities, infrastructure, landscape, and human lives. We know how long reconstruction takes on the land, as well as in the minds and memories of the people. We know that peace is not achieved when the fighting stops. Peace is achieved when societies rebuild trust, opportunity, and hope, and that takes time. The experience of the Balkans also taught us something else. European integration can be one of the most powerful instruments for reconciliation, for stability, and long-term prosperity. It provides a framework within which difficult reforms become possible and where shared goals overcome historical divisions. This is why Ukraine's European path matters not only for Ukraine, but for the entire European project. Agriculture also, in your case, even more than during our times, stands at the center of this discussion. Ukraine is one of the world's great agricultural nations. Its farmers have demonstrated extraordinary resilience during the wartime. Despite damaged infrastructure, disrupted supply chains, mined land, and enormous uncertainty, they continue to produce food, support communities, and contribute to global food security. Their determination deserves our respect and also our support. Yet, the question before us today is not simply how Ukraine joins European agricultural markets. The question is how Ukraine, and indeed all of Europe, can build an agricultural system that is productive, competitive, resilient, and environmentally sustainable at the same time. Too often, agriculture and environment are presented as opposing interests. At the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, we have consistently argued that this is a false choice. There is no future for agriculture without healthy soils, biodiversity, water security, and much more. And there is certainly no future for agriculture without a stable climate. Likewise, there is no successful environmental policy that ignores the realities faced by farmers and rural communities. The future thus requires partnership, not polarization. It requires innovation, not ideology. It requires collaboration across sectors, disciplines, and borders. The challenges we face are increasingly systematic. Climate change, biodiversity loss, resource scarcity, food security, energy security, geopolitical instability are all interconnected challenges. They cannot be solved through isolated policies or short-term thinking. This is why I have often spoken about the need for a systemic change. We must move beyond linear models of production and consumption toward more regenerative, circular, resource-efficient systems. We need economic models that reward regeneration rather than depletion. We need to recognize that natural capital is not separate from economic prosperity. It is one of its foundations. The challenge is not only technological, it is institutional, it is financial, and above all, it is political. We must create the conditions that allow sustainability to lead, innovation to scale, and cooperation to flourish. This lesson is equally relevant in Ukraine and across Europe. As someone who has recently worked closely with Moldova on its European journey, I'm encouraged by the determination I see across our eastern neighbors. Their commitment demonstrates that European integration remains one of the most powerful transformative forces available to us. But success will require patience, realism, and sustained cooperation from all sides. No country joins the European Union overnight, no country transforms its agricultural system overnight, and no country builds resilience alone. That is why today's discussion is so important. Together, however, we can identify pathways that balance economic opportunity with environmental responsibility. We can identify practical solutions that support Ukrainian farmers while advancing European sustainability objectives. The road ahead will, of course, not be easy, but Europe has always moved forward when it combined ambition with cooperation, vision with pragmatism, solidarity with action. Let us approach this challenge with the same spirit. To conclude, times in the world and also in Europe are challenging. One must acknowledge increased complexity of geostrategical reality. It looks like German philosopher Hegel was unfortunately right, saying the only thing we can learn from the history is that we learn nothing from the history. We need hope and we need compass. Indeed, the challenges and solutions are more than ever global in nature, and indeed, Europe is part of the global community. We cannot act without considering the global developments, and many, as you know, are not promising. But one thing is certain. European Union is a visionary concept of visionary people. We should be proud on achieved. An example of much needed cooperation and governance in this complex, connected, and interdependent world. We need to regain the necessary confidence and trust of our citizens that Europe is on the right side of the history, worthy of our efforts and determination to protect and to improve it. We should not allow hope to be replaced by fear, and compass set by values, rule of law, science, and cooperation to be replaced by the turbulent future designed and actually kidnapped by the storm of power. Diplomacy is indeed an art of compromise, but without a compass rooted in values, Europe risks not only losing the leverage, but itself. So let us work together to ensure that integration of Ukrainian agriculture strengthens not only Ukraine, but the future resilience, sustainability, prosperity of the Europe as a whole. Thank you, and apologies that I will have to leave you soon due to other personal obligations. Actually, my son is visiting me once per year in Brussels, and I promised him a joint evening, and I wish you a productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janusz, very much. If I can just ask you one question, Janusz, because as you're supposed to leave, so just to continue, if you could have one advice now, because we're starting, summertime, we're feeling the hot weather outside. What could be the advice for the next few weeks when we start, this holiday period in Europe? So what should we do to come back in September?
It's too hot to discuss serious matters. No, I'm joking. I have said in previous meeting, because I was already in Parliament from the 2 o'clock, that it's too hot today to discuss climate change. But indeed, what I think, what is happening around us is goddamn worrying. We are entering an era which, in particular for the farmers, will be a disaster era. And if we don't understand that relatively quickly and start joining our forces to do what we can do, because we are already a bit too far in that, we all know that. That's not COVID. That's not 1 year or 2 years and the things are back to normal, unfortunately. But saying that, that you would not lose the hope, I think it's essential to stay optimistic, because we are humans and humans need hope, and we need to stay optimistic. By the way, it's also optimists who change the world. And if you want more personal advice, it is optimists who live longer and better. So I think that whatever it will be happening, also, I mean it in the times of your accession to the European Union, optimism should prevail. I'm pretty sure that at the end we will have a joint future. And since I was, as mentioned, leading negotiations of Slovenia, if you stay committed, consistent, and since actually political atmosphere is on your side, you are on a good journey. And this journey needs your belief and needs your hope. And never forget that we are here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't know, that's an easy task now for Taras Wysocki, Deputy Vice Minister of Economy, Environment and Agriculture, who is with us online. But as we had you already in the past as our speaker, so just over to you now in Ukraine.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear distinguished guests and participants. Thank you for the organization of such a discussion and event. Thank you for the possibility to join you online. Some of my colleagues are also joining this event physically, and I'm sure that in the end we will have very good results and thoughts for our further common development and cooperation, which we are sure is going to happen. A few comments about like basic macro figures once again about Ukrainian agriculture as a candidate country to join the European Union, and some of the reflection for the speech of the first speaker. Yes, so we have first to remember that as of now, of course, we are fighting to change this figure and to deoccupy all the temporarily occupied territory. But as of now, we are talking about the scale of Ukrainian agriculture, which is around 24.5 million hectares of agricultural land, which is, yes, a big agriculture, but not as big as has been discussed or announced before, because usually the number of 40 million hectares of agricultural land is used, and it's a really big difference. It's 1/3 or 50% more. So Ukrainian agriculture is flexible, is efficient, is ready for the cooperation, but is not of such a scale and size that there can be any critical risks for the next cycles of common agricultural policy. Of course, we have to discuss, and we are ready to make it, and also to participate in the discussions and see which models could be applied for the integration of Ukrainian agriculture. But once again, for us, it seems that it is doable as tasks and not really very critical and big one. Also, for us also to fix about demining and the contamination of land, of course, is an issue. The current, just to inform you, the current situation is the next one. We can't so far assess the level of contamination of agricultural land, soils on the temporarily occupied territory. But when we talk about the controlled territory, with the support of lots of international partners and also with the support from the Ukrainian state budget, so far we have been able to assess, monitor, and even demine, I would say, most of the agricultural land which are in the territories which are safe from the war point of view. And indeed, some percentage, it's likely not more than up to 3% of the area which was under the monitoring should apply special measures for the decontamination, but in most cases it's the soil of good quality which could be used for the production of good quality of products, agricultural commodities, and then further on. So we keep working in this direction, have developed a lot, but also so far it we have been able to to avoid the problem of millions of hectares of land, anti-contamination, which also I think is important for the Ukrainian, European, and international food security, that we can talk as a guarantee of food security. Coming back, more details for the our integration tract, we are very thankful for the decision of the European Union and members of the European Union about opening of the first clusters, fundamentals, the negotiation period. We are looking forward also for such decisions with respect to other clusters. In our case, first of all, cluster number 5, which has 3 agricultural chapters, and preparing for it. We do understand that so far none of the countries has a final successful experience of finalizing negotiations with 27 countries, and especially none of the countries with such a big agricultural sector. Negotiation of 27 countries in order to finalize, but we are ready for this challenge, preparing for it, and also preparing by making our homework or home tasks. After the screening, which was conducted in September 2025, and after receiving the benchmarks, in case of agricultural directions, there are 16 benchmarks. We have analyzed them actually already together with collaboration with the Agricultural Committee of the Parliament, have drafted, and some draft laws already are registered. Some are under the registration during this week. 2 more initiatives with respect to benchmarks, and 3 more are going to be drafted and registered till the end of the year. And by this, actually till the end of 2026, we will have at least the basic draft, all the necessary, the most important draft laws registered, in order to keep then process of implementations. I do agree with the message of the previous speakers that it's very important to be transparent, open, and to have the dialogue not only with the EU members but also inside of the country. We are following the same strategy as the ministry. The ministry is currently a very big ministry of economy, agriculture, and environment. But as a ministry, as a government, we are openly discussing all of this change of rule of the game, so of these legislations with the parliament in advance, presenting, hearing the thoughts. But also what's very important, we are discussing it with the society, agricultural society, through the agricultural associations, which are active participants of all of this track. As far as I understand, Andriy is head of one of the agricultural association. Andriy Kund is also currently participating physically in this event. I can comment, but it's very important for us really to discuss internally, discuss it transparently, and then with a common position to go for the outside discussion and outside negotiations with all of the member states, especially the ones which are very interested in agricultural issues and for which the agricultural issues are of great importance. And we do know that it's historically agricultural topic has always been also the political topic. It's in all the basics agricultural, agri-political economics topics discussed, and we do not understand that there are such cycles as election cycles. So it's also one of the challenges, but nevertheless, we are step by step moving in this direction, common position, and for further discussion and communication. So it's an honor for me to be part of the current discussion. Very interesting previous speakers, and also looking forward for the next ones, and also ready to participate in the discussion and answer the questions, if any, in terms of your protocol of the current meeting. So far, thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Taras. If I can briefly just ask you one question for less than 1 minute. We are starting soon the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Poland on Thursday and Friday. Agriculture was added as a topic to the discussion. What kind of outcomes are you expecting, in like 1 to 2 outcomes you would like to see from that discussion?
I would say that one of the outcomes is the better understanding of all of the involved stakeholders of what's the current state of Ukrainian agriculture, what's the current cooperation of Ukrainian agriculture with the European member states agriculture and other sectors, and what are the possibilities for our cooperation, because it still seems there are some myths or misunderstandings. So it's very important to keep working in this information campaign, what's really the situation is and where can we cooperate and work together. And that's one group of outcomes. And another, as you said, about 2 ones, is really to prove or like to promote, I would even say, the message that Ukrainian agriculture is open for investments. First of all, so the European Union, and actually we have around 100 of European farmers already working in Ukraine since a long time, and also during the full-scale invasion. That's in the primary agriculture, and we have lots of companies in the processing and so on. So really, to keep explaining that it is possible and it is profitable also to invest in Ukrainian agriculture, even during such hard times of the full-scale invasion.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm leaving you because I know that you're very, very busy. So thank you also for your time to be with us online. And I'm just turning now to Ambassador Chetsnov, because we have the chance to have you also following all the discussions here in Brussels. So if you could share some thoughts with us too.
Thank you very much. It's difficult to complement what was already said by Minister Vysotsky and previous speakers. But since our part is called geopolitical context, right? Setting political, yes, opening and political context. I would like to make probably the few general points. We just opened a real accession process with cluster 1, and following clusters hopefully will be opened quite soon. We are working hard on that, which will cover also agriculture and other related sectors. So which means that we're entering into the already quite operational and practical phase of our accession process. And definitely there is a great interest to think how we can make use of all those reforms and work which both government and industry are conducting now, already on this stage, not waiting for the final, say, stage of our accession process, for the very obvious reasons, because agriculture is one, unfortunately, of the few remaining big sectors which are bringing revenues, creating jobs, and supporting other sectors of economy. So roughly, agriculture is responsible for about half of the external revenues to the Ukrainian budget, and half of this half falls on the EU. So it shows the importance of the EU as a partner. The second point is that we already
very integrated, and I keep repeating it on every occasion. When I was still posted in the Netherlands, I used to draw the attention of the Dutch colleagues that each liter of the Dutch milk contained a great portion of the Ukrainian soya meal. So not only Dutch milk, but actually any product which is coming from Ukraine, be it animal food or European technology or seeds. So we are getting more and more integrated. And when some forces in Europe and outside want to limit Ukrainian access to the EU market, with one hand, they need to remember that with the other hand, they are limiting possibilities of their own industry and industries, those industries who supply the Ukraine and those industries who process the Ukrainian product. So it shows the necessity to look in a more complex way how we interact already on this stage and especially in the future. So it's much bigger than just defending interests of the European farmers with all respect to the issue. So it's about food security, it's about economic stability, both of the EU, Ukraine and European Union. It's also about how we work together on the third markets. And probably to conclude, I think that we need to demystify finally the Ukrainian agriculture, to make sure that people understand that it's a great value. Ukrainian agriculture, Ukrainian soils, Ukrainian people who still want to join the EU, who feel European, who want to work together, to deliver together. I think we need to change this narrative and the angle of our vision, because if we always go technical and fight around which standards Ukraine takes to get access to the market, very important, but we need to see the bigger picture, and then we will definitely succeed. So thank you very much again for this discussion. And sorry, I forgot to say in the beginning, I wanted to thank the organizers of the event, the Ukrainian Council, Agrarian Council, and I want to draw your attention that it's about small and medium-sized farmers. So again, it's not a myth that Ukrainian agriculture is about only big vertically integrated holdings, formidable force for Europe. So it's also about small and medium enterprises, which Europe loves so much. So we need to support Ukrainian small and medium-sized enterprises, and definitely big thanks to the members of the parliament who contributed to this event. And we are looking forward to continuation of this deep and serious discussion of our agricultural cooperation in this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And I'm leaving to the public after to have questions to you, because I know that there will be plenty of questions. So I'm sparing mine for the others, because we still have some organizers we would like to bring in the opening, and to thank you to be with us also, especially Christoph Gilgen, who is representing the Federal Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Rural Identity. So over to you.
Thank you. Dear members of the Ukrainian Parliament, of the European Parliament, Excellencies, dear colleagues, I would like to, on the one hand, thank for the possibility to having the project and our cooperation here, but also want to go a bit deeper in our cooperation and explaining what we are doing within the Ukrainian-German agricultural policy dialogue, which is now for 20 years making significant contributions to expanding bilateral agricultural cooperation and also supporting priority Ukrainian reform activities and efforts in the agri-food sector. So we are now in the 7th project phase, which began early January this year, and focusing on supporting the modernization of the Ukrainian agricultural sector as it aligns with EU policies and also EU strategies. In April, the establishment of a strategic partnership during the German-Ukrainian intergovernmental consultations further strengthens and identifies the political and economic boundings between Germany and Ukraine. So it was very clearly stated by President Zelensky and also Federal Chancellor Merz that Ukraine and Germany want to move closer together, and both emphasize the common goal of learning from each other and investing in the European future together. So today our cooperation is more effective, our trusting partnership is stronger, and our friendship and the bond between our societies are deeper than ever. So that's the signal that also came from this governmental negotiations. And my ministry supports this strategic partnership through technical cooperation on the one hand, but also fosters the alignment of the Ukrainian agricultural sector with the EU, aiming for equal legal frameworks and standards to ensure balanced and fair competition. This promotes and strengthens EU-Ukrainian trade relations. It's also a priority of my ministry in this phase, and furthermore also the alignment with EU legislation and improving conditions for European companies in the Ukrainian agri-food sector for investments. Agriculture trade and the expansion of joint economic relations are also fundamental components of the APD's 7th phase. Key trade policy issues are discussed involving relevant associations from both sides and also corresponding activities such as joint fair visit, business association dialogues, which we already carried out 2nd time this year at GFFA, Global Forum for Food and Agriculture in Berlin. It has now been agreed within the APD framework to establish a multilateral working group and topic-specific task forces, which will consist of representatives from both our ministries and staff from the European Commission, while also including and incorporating the expertise of representatives from parliamentary committees, business associations, and research institutions. Our aim is to continuously develop coordinated and evidence-based positions and introduce them into the political discourse as joint recommendations for action. So today we had the kickoff, our first meeting. We discussed the topics and on which topics would be priority. So we identified also the area of food safety, rural development, land management, and selected environmental sectors. And we are happy that within our group, already now presenting some of the leading Ukrainian, German, European research at the first studies and presentations. So thanks again to you as organizers, and thanks again to the project leadership under Ms. Rofimtseva to organizing this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's very important to have also your support. And this is only the, we will continue with this series of discussions, workshops. So it's very good to know that we can continue that collaboration. And as I'm doing a poor job because we're supposed to start the panel 1 already, so I will be giving some seconds to Andriy, who is the chairman of the Ukrainian Agri Council, to jump to this opening part, but you're also in the closing part, so we will be still able to hear more of you.
Yesterday it was minutes, now it's seconds. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big pleasure for me to be here today with our team, and thank you very much, European Land Owners Organization and Ukrainian German Policy Dialogue for organizing this event. And actually, Jan just left, but I like his phrase that we are joining the times when it would be very big disaster for the farmers. So I want to say that Ukrainian farmers are already living in disaster for 4 years. And this is the 5th year of the war, would be the most difficult for us because the kill zone, the so-called kill zone is now not like few kilometers, it's over 100 kilometers and it will be bigger, unfortunately. More and more drones are over Ukrainian fields, are being hit by Ukrainian interceptors. So hundreds of drones and thousands of interceptors every night creates a lot of problem for our farmers. We have lots of fires in the field and we just started our harvest. And the problem which is occurred for us recently is damage to Ukrainian ports. Ukrainian port infrastructure is being destroyed every day, and there are no any guarantees for our grain in the ports. There are no any guarantees or insurance for equipment and facilities in the ports. And we're afraid that 2022, when Black Sea ports were blocked, can be repeated if this question would not be solved. Besides all this problem, we really would like as soon as possible to join to EU. We understand that it will not happen over the night. And we also concerned. Yes, we're afraid. We know that European farmers are afraid, but we don't want to create any problems for European farmers. We want this join of Ukraine to EU should be mutually beneficial for both, for Ukrainian and for European farmers. And how to do it, I don't know today. But I really hope that all these brilliant speakers and experts which are present today around this round table would help us to find answers on those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And without delay, I'm jumping. We'll be having 2 sessions now. The first one is moderated by Tassos, the second one by Olga. Tassos, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity also to moderate this session. I will be very brief in the introductory comments. For those that don't know me, I'm Tassos Haniotis. I'm currently a special advisor to the forum. I'm also a guest research scholar at the International Institute of Applied System Analysis, and in my former life, I spent 33 years in the European Commission, mainly in DG Agri, where I retired as Director of Strategy and Policy Analysis. And in this career, I've seen a lot. 6 reforms of the CAP, 3 enlargements. And one of the things that is always coming in mind when enlargements and reforms pretty much come together, it's like you're shooting at a moving target. And discussions around the budget and discussions around the future of the common agricultural policy take place right now together with the discussion about the integration of Ukraine into the European Union. I don't know, I was looking at the new for me, actually, I hadn't noticed, the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture and Regional Identity of Germany. I don't know if this has anything to do with a single fund or not, but I mean, the moving target is there. But what is new this time around is that the discussion about the integration of Ukraine is taking place with a major geostrategic rebalancing that takes place. And that's another moving target that we don't know where it's going to go. So the first session right now is being entitled Mapping the Impact, the Agri Lens, based on some of the previous comments. It could be called From Myths to Realities. Let's see. I have 4 doctors that are introducing here. I've been there myself, so I know the challenge of sticking to the 7 minutes that you have, or you will be reminded 2 minutes before. Those that would be dealing with the slides, where slides are there, you would have to say next slide, so they know that they have to change it. And without further ado, I start with the first speaker, which is Tina Akhvelediani, which is Head of Enlargement Program and Research Fellow at the Center for European Policy Studies. And the floor is yours to talk to us from mines to markets, pathways for Ukraine's agricultural recovery.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. If I go over time, please do interrupt me. Very briefly, what brings me here is that I have been running at CEPS, the task force on Ukraine's agricultural recovery. And this report that I will be talking about owes a big thanks to the special contributors to the task force, which are here in this very room. Ms. Trofintseva, dear Olga, Mr. Niviversky, dear Oleg, Mr. Bobitsky, Nazar, dear Nazar, Ms. Movchan, dear Veronica, there. I hope I don't miss anyone. So the key experts, the big contributors to the topic. So we put this task force together and I'm here to talk about it. And I think it's a good occasion because we will then talk about Ukraine's agricultural sector from the lenses of recovery and why this is important, because we do need a forward-looking view on this very traditional sector, if you think about it. Now, the few things that already spoke to me today, the Deputy Minister already started speaking about this topic from the issue of the mining. And that's how our report starts, starting from the very basics. What are we talking about? This is the mining, because if we talk about recovery, we need to make sure that Ukraine's land is in a good shape. This is not only about production, but also that, fruits, the production is safe. The country is still at a full-scale war, so this is very important. So the analysis or the lens is looking at the agricultural recovery starts from the very first step, which is the mining of the land. Then what we found very important, discussing a lot of stakeholders, the next step we found to be as the main bottleneck of the recovery, access to finance. Now, why this is the issue? Because, again, I think that was the ambassador who mentioned that EU loves SMEs, but also Ukraine has millions of SMEs. This is Ukraine's agricultural sector that is bimodal structurally. So we have a lot of agri-holdings, which are really large. However, we have many millions of small and medium-sized enterprises and small farmlands who actually struggle to have access to funding, particularly when it comes for approximating EU acquis and implementing it. And agriculture is the one sector which has a lot of non-tariff barriers. Why I say this? Because under the CFTA, under trade liberalization, a lot of tariffs have already been removed. Tariff rate quotas are still there, but non-tariff barriers exist. So even if we open the borders for the EU, if Ukrainian goods, agricultural goods, do not meet the standards, we can have the doors open. They will not necessarily access the market or reach the EU consumers. So access to finance is a very big issue, and we need to, improve the access to finance for those small and medium-sized enterprises for which this is obviously an obstacle. Now, the third step is what we found during our research is a digital divide, because we're speaking about a country which is quite a front runner in the digital transformation, uptake of the AI. We have so much to learn from Ukraine. However, this sector is still very traditional. We can't ask all the farmers to, harness all these tools. And what we found in our discussions, and somehow, to this date, farmers are still using Russian origin softwares for some of their functioning. You can see it's 1C in the report. You can refer to it. So there is plenty that needs to be addressed when it comes to bridging the digital divide and use this digital transformation that country has uptaken in other sectors, also in this very traditional agricultural sector. Let alone that, this information that Ukraine has now in all this, infrastructure should not travel to China or the US or all the other machineries, let alone to the Russian origin softwares, right? This is very important. And there's plenty to cooperate here with the EU, and this has to be taken very seriously when it comes to the Ukraine's alignment with the EU acquis. So not only on the non-tariff barriers, but also in the digital matters, how Ukraine can be part of the, agri-cloud and all those things, so the country can have a very good, serious resilience and security when it comes to the agricultural sector. The fourth point is that obviously infrastructure is a very big element which is basically the highest numbers and scores the highest when it comes to the damage, right? The damage that Ukraine's infrastructure encountered due to the full-scale war by the end of last year is approximately 200 billion euros in this infrastructure, $200 billion, sorry, very big difference these days, in this infrastructure, right? This infrastructure is the one that requires the most of investments to be rebuilt. We saw how much damage it can have to the, the deterring the trade. We saw this by the blockade of the Black Sea ports. Now we have Danube contingency systems, but there is much more to be done. Most importantly, even if we repair the infrastructure, there are not in place the security systems that would deter further damage of the infrastructure. I mean, the repairing of the infrastructure costs a lot of money. We need to have certain air defenses there so that they would not be damaged again. There is plenty to be done here, but without well-functioning infrastructure, Ukraine's agricultural goods simply cannot trade, and we saw how much damage that can be. It's very important we keep the Danube contingencies as well as, repairing all the infrastructure. Now, why this is very important, not only for the trading with the EU, which we saw very important in numbers, Ambassador also mentioned it, but because certain EU member states have had also concerns that Ukrainian goods, can be too concentrated to certain member states. Why this happened? Precisely because in some areas, we didn't have good transport corridors so that Ukrainian goods would reach where they're the most needed. We should not forget that Ukraine is, inherently a global supplier of the agricultural goods. Before the full-scale war, Ukraine was exporting hundreds of countries. We should allow country to continue doing so, right? And this is why rebuilding infrastructure is not just recovering trade with the EU, but most importantly, recovering the trade globally. That's where to reach the consumers where Ukrainian goods are extremely, extremely needed so that they don't create some concentrations in the bordering countries within the European Union. And the final point that I wanted to make is Ukraine's role in European, but also global food security. I think it was Deputy Minister, but also the ambassador who have mentioned that trade in agriculture with Ukraine should be taken from the angle of complementarity rather than competition when it comes to the EU. First of all, there is a clear specialization. We have Ukrainian farmers who really specialize on the lower end of the supply chains. We have some improvements, but mainly they're there, while EU agri-producers, they mostly locate themselves on the higher end of the supply chains, right? So there is a clear complementarity already. There are the goods that are really needed, the proteins, the soya mills, where Ukraine provides the sources, where EU already has dependencies on the Latin America, or let's say less aligned partners, right? So Ukraine offers definitely a good source for strengthening the resilience of the EU in the products where it's already importing. So we need to take that angle to strengthen trade relations precisely in this angle so that Ukraine brings the benefits and, extends the EU's role on the global market rather than seeing it as a competition purely. And of course, like how this recovery will happen and will shape up. This has further implications that really goes beyond Ukraine and beyond the EU, because this is a call to take this opportunity with this large damage and to make it as a transformation. And so many countries have to learn. Unfortunately, this is not the only war that is going currently in this world. There are other countries that will learn on this. So there is really a lot on stake. So it will be a very, very important call. And yeah, I'll be happy to take on questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tina, especially also for staying on time. The next one is Alphonse Bollman, who is Director and Head of the Department of Structural Change at the IAMO, which is a Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Development and Transition Economies. And he will focus on the benefits and risks of integration of the Ukrainian agriculture. Please go ahead. And yes, next slide.
Thank you for the opportunity to present here a big study. You can download it. Oh, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I present here a joint study of IAMO and Kiev School of Economics, where Taras Gagayuk and Oleg Neviersky were some of the main authors. I will summarize this study. You can download But I also will add some additional thoughts. I will start with four core messages. The first message is that EU and Ukraine together establish a real powerhouse on international food markets, and that should and can be used strategically, and both sides can benefit from it, not only due to complementarities, but also because of just the pure size. These two regions now are already jointly representing 30% of food exports. The second point is that Ukraine also enables sustainability issues to exploit by the European Union. For example, big issues and topics are plant proteins, but also biomass, bioenergy, and don't forget about the bioeconomy, for example, with regard to specific high-value products such as amino acids. Next slide. A specific issue which already has been addressed is that up to now, Ukraine is particularly engaged in for example, exporting raw products. Up to now, Ukraine still is only processing some 20% of the agricultural products. The EU or Brazil process some 60% of the products. And here is a huge potential to invest within Ukraine to engage in processing on many different levels, which could complement not just the production structure within the European Union, but also which allows a stronger integration. And that brings me to the next slide. Already now, and as that has already been said, Ukraine is already strongly involved and embedded in the EU agri-food value chains. There are many examples. For example, for example, the European livestock industry is relying on protein imports, but also our consumers benefit, for example, from poultry imports from Ukraine and vice versa. A lot of technology is exported towards Ukraine. For example, also in the poultry industry, even the genetics is exported, for example, from Germany. Next slide. And that means there are a number of areas where investments are not only possible, but where there is a real need to invest, but which is also linked to huge investment opportunities on many different levels. That is primary production, that is processing, and it is logistics, cold chains. There are also business opportunities in the fields of compliance and certification, which also may create additional benefits on both sides. And last but not least, the bioeconomy offers big opportunities. Next slide. And there is a specific additional point related to investments. We have learned from the previous EU enlargements that investments and EU alignment go hand in hand and can strengthen each other. That means if there is alignment with EU standards, that makes investments much easier and more attractive. And on the other hand, if there are investments, that creates strong incentives, on the one hand, on the political area within Ukraine, for example, to align with EU standards, but also for the business. And that is something where we all can benefit. Next slide. There are, however, currently debates on production standards, and the next slide, which are addressing trade-offs, for example, between environmental objectives and production objectives. On the one hand here, the European Union previously had a very strong focus with regard to environmental issues. Next, Ukraine, however, surely has, because of the situation, stronger preference, for example, with regard to production perspectives. However, if we look at reality, EU agriculture and Ukrainian agriculture are far away from the frontier, which is possible. We have within Ukraine, but also within the European Union, modern farm, but we also have museum farming. We have lots of problems within management of farms, within poor infrastructures, poor institutions. And if you look at the current policy debates, we often see conflicts between farmers who want to move to the lower right and environmental groups more to want to move rather to the upper left. But there is a huge potential on both sides to increase production and to increase environmental goods. But that requires structural change, and eventually that requires also some fundamental debates within Ukraine and within the European Union to identify the potentials. And surely, next slide, if we are taking these issues serious, we also have to be aware that we should not just say, okay, the EU is in favor of environment and Ukraine in favor of production. No, we have to adapt on both sides. If Ukraine would enter the EU, the preferences within the European Union with regard to environmental and also production objectives would have to change on both sides, and that would eventually also create some additional joint benefits. Here I would like to end and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alphonse. The next in my list is Oleg Ivyevsky, who is professor of economics at the Kiev School of Economics, and he will focus on integrating Ukraine into the EU single food market. So, floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Tas. Can you please put the presentation on the slides? So my presentation or my...
Sorry, one moment. I think a series of next slides are parts of the annex of what Alphonse said.
Yes. While you're putting my presentation on the screen, I will just say that this my presentation is based on the study that I did last year, commissioned by APD and by the Ministry of at that time of Agriculture, or the Ministry of Economy. That I don't remember exactly. So and it's a little bit kind of some thoughts are added to that because next slide, please. I'd like to demonstrate. The impact or expected impact of integrating the Ukrainian agriculture into the EU in terms of kind of how it's going to impact agricultural competitiveness. So based on the structure of the common agricultural policy and the common market organization in particular, I will just make a big picture of my expectations, because I mean, if we see that competitiveness of Ukrainian agriculture will be improved, or how it's going to change because of the integration, then we can make a conclusion on the kind of developments and how Ukrainian farmers will be feeling. Let's put it that way in the EU community. Next slide, please. So. In terms of measures, I'd like just to structure my discussion in terms of the measures that we have under the Common Agricultural Policy, which is basically market measures under the Common Market Organization. Then we have direct income support, the payments, then we have rural development, and some kind of horizontal measures related to environment, food safety, etc. So next slide, please. Inside the Common Market Organization, so if you would like to break it down a little bit more, we have internal market measures, so the market interventions that we have, the way the trade with the non-EU country is going on, and then we have competition rules in order to that competition is ensured inside the EU, and some general rules. So why this is important? Next slide, please. Because I'd like to analyze the agricultural competitiveness using a really simplified framework, because I see, based on the previous work and based on the literature, like you can look at the change in the competitiveness to be composed of like three components, changing in the three components. Previous slide. The first is that how productivity changes. how the output prices change and how the input prices change with respect to agricultural production. So if we look at these three components and how the EU agriculture will, so EU integration will affect these three components, productivity, output prices, and input prices, we can make some inferences on the expected impact on the competitiveness. And here, I mainly see on the output prices and input prices from the perspective how the policy environment changes the prices of outputs that the farmers will get in Ukraine and the inputs, the prices of inputs that the farmers will get, and how the productivity of the farmers will change as the result of the EU integration. So the next slide, please. So if you look at the one of the key components of this integration process is basically the trade environment. So and here is very much interesting how the input prices will change because of the changed trade environment, in particular the trade protection against the imports from the third countries. Because if Ukraine integrates into the EU, then we have a single market. There is no trade barriers between Ukraine and in EU anymore. So that means inputs will be able to be consumed kind of free of tariff barriers. So that means that's a plus. So the prices, the input prices for agricultural producers will be lower. But when it comes to the imports from the third countries, which is also quite important in terms of kind of agricultural inputs, we can see that, for instance, the trade-weighted average tariff for the current cases of Ukraine and EU are not that much different. So that means, on average, we cannot really expect a critical kind of negative impact of competitiveness in terms of input prices if Ukraine becomes like a member of the customs union, basically, of the EU, of the European Union. So that's kind of my first message, that in terms of prices, I wouldn't expect like a negative impact, the input prices. Next slide, please. So we have that then. In terms of output prices, because that's also another important element of the equation. So here, I think that very much important the standards, and that Ukraine will have to comply with. So from the one hand, this is kind of the cost, and I will be talking about that on the next slide. But from the other side, I mean, it's sort of a perceived better quality of Ukrainian products. There are studies that if we have this assumption at hand, that means that the Ukrainian products can have higher prices, kind of with the quality premium, etc., etc. So from that side, I think that if Ukraine becomes a member of the European Union, then we can expect at least the same level of prices, or even increase because of this perceived better quality and better market access to other export markets. Next slide, please. And in terms of another component in this exercise is that compliance costs. So because Ukraine will have to comply with the EU standards, and from that perspective, compliance cost will be there. But I mean, due to various sources, the level of this compliance cost is about 10%, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit less, but about 10%. And from this perspective, this doesn't seem like very much critical for agricultural sector. So, and I think that due to some productivity gap that still we have in agriculture, so this additional cost will be able, so the farmer sector will be able to to overcome. Hopefully that institutional capacity will not really be a block for Ukrainian farmers, so that they will have better institutional environment to work with less barriers and in a less costly environment. So that's going to be like a facilitating moment in that respect. So the last slide, please. So overall, I think that from the big picture, I see like Ukrainian competitiveness is quite optimistic when it comes to EU integration. So from the elements of the equation that I demonstrated, I don't see really kind of a negative impact on competitiveness. So in terms of prices, productivity, and input prices. So that means the expectations are quite positive, although there are homework to be done, which is kind of additional administrative capacity built up, and how the probably small farmers have to deal with additional compliance costs. But this is kind of a question of another discussion. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Oleg. And now to the last speaker of this panel, Taras Gagaliuk, also from IAMO, who will focus on the structural diversity and regional specialization in Ukrainian agriculture.
Thank you, Tassos. And thank you, organizers, the APD project, also for the invitation to present to you today here. And actually, my presentation is based on two studies that my colleague Alexandra Sikachina and I have conducted upon request of the APD project. And today I'm I would like to focus on an important aspect, which is the structural diversity and regional specialization of Ukrainian agriculture, and why it matters for the EU integration. And here the main argument is that Ukraine's agriculture is not one production system. It comprises various farm structures and regional production models that will be or will face distinct challenges and opportunities of the EU integration. Next slide, please. So we have in Ukraine three major groups of producers: agricultural producers, farmers, micro and small farms, less than 500 hectares. We have medium farms from 500 to 10,000 hectares, and large enterprises of more than 10,000 hectares. And each of these groups plays its unique role. So it means these groups are not substitutes, actually. They are complementary, because micro and small farms are very important at the local markets. Medium-sized enterprises contribute to regional supply chains and also to exports. And large enterprises with their logistics orientation are clearly export-oriented. Next slide, please. So the next dimension is regional differentiation. And here, what we see that the war has shifted agricultural production from the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine to the west. And on the left-hand side, you can see the map. I'm not sure if all of you can see it. We observe that the production of agricultural commodities in the west of Ukraine has even increased during the war. However, there is another side of the coin. In the east and especially in the south, where the most losses were incurred from the war, an increased specialization or concentration on the production of very few export-oriented products takes place. And as of today, we have the following picture. The top 10 regions produce 64% or generate 64% of total agricultural output in Ukraine, whereas before the war, this figure was at the level of 57%. Next slide. Yeah. So in general, our study for the APD project has shown that we have 4 regional production models. We have 9 regions with narrow specialization, focusing on very few products, but being also highly efficiency and export oriented. Then we have regions, 7 regions with moderate diversification. And we also have the third group, highly diversified regions, primarily in the west of Ukraine. And we have also regions which we can call depressive zone, which suffered most of all because of the war. These are 4 regions. And each of these regions will face the EU integration challenges and opportunities differently. Next slide, please. So how can CAP or EU integration, for example, common agricultural policy integration, affect Ukrainian regions? So we will have, might have the following picture. So CAP adaptation costs will not be distributed evenly across all regions in Ukraine. And export specialized regions might face higher adjustment pressures because of their orientation on exports and their little diversification, especially in the view of those requirements, CAP requirements that prioritize diversification, ecological conditionality set asides, etc., etc. Small farms will face weaker administrative capacity. Larger farms have some stronger technological capacity, and actually this is a huge potential of Ukraine, that its medium and large-scale farms, as of today, according to a study of the consultancy called AgGig, 70% of them use precision agricultural technologies. 60% of them are using variable rate application of pesticides. So next slide. What will this mean for the EU-Ukraine agricultural integration? It means that we need differentiated integration pathways, and by no means am I trying to emphasize here like different integration models. I mean, all regions have to converge to a single EU integration model, but their pathways to this integration might be different. And policymakers need to take that into account and avoid one-size-fits-all approaches. Also, investment might be needed or precede conditionality, especially in the regions affected by the war. And policies should support structural coexistence and functional complementarity of various farm types. With that, I would like to finish here and open a discussion.
Thank you very much to all four of you that you have allowed us to stay on time. And what we have actually is 9 minutes that would allow the audience to ask questions. I forgot to apologize to the back door of the room that you were not able to see the slides that will be made available to all of you afterwards. So questions from the floor. Yes.
I should start. You always need somebody to start.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm Gilles Driancourt. I am with John Deere, and John Deere is a strategic partner of the FFA. And also, when I was the chair of the strategic committee of SEMA, I published a study on how to rebuild Ukraine agriculture after the war. And by the way, all the points you addressed, the 6 points, are in. It's not exactly the same order, but they are all in. So also, I heard about moving agriculture to the higher segment of the value chain. I think it's a very good idea. There is one thing missing I didn't hear today, and it's about the complementary aspects. You mentioned that. And biofuels. So we as a company, we see Ukraine as a major player in the future for the production of biofuels. I know that Ukraine started to produce biomethane, but what about bioethanol, biodiesel? Is it in your study? I'd like to have a little bit more, let's say, insider's view on what is going on regarding biofuels. Thank you.
Thanks. Let me try to take a couple of other questions if there are. You're saying, yeah? Sorry. Please.
Olga Byakova from Ukrainian Agri Council. I wanted to clarify the point made by Oleg. In your presentation, am I right? I'm hearing that you said that the cost for Ukrainian farmers to make a transition into the standards, European standards of production would be relatively not high how does it correspond with, if I'm correct in understanding your point, and how does it correspond with the point taken by another speaker who suggested that even depending on regional structure, the costs will be different for those who are in the east or west or whatever. To which extent you analyzed specifically the size and the expert orientation of the farmers when it comes to the cost of introducing the standards?
Is there another question? Yes. Oh, yeah.
Bernard Valui from the think tank Agriday. I would like just to know about the structures and regional specialization. You have been talking about its need just to get some pathway, just to take into account this diagnostic does impact the way, the duration of the negotiation. How do you see that for the time necessary just to adapt? It's not only on standards, it's just to take into account the structures of the farms and the different kind of regions. If you have some clarification from that. Thank you.
Thanks. And maybe one more, so we have 4 answers.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. My name is Martin Banse from the Thünen Institute in Braunschweig, Germany. I have a question to Oleg. Oleg, thank you very much for your presentation. It looked like, I know yet that you also running models, and I listened to your last presentation I've seen in Bonn, where you said that with the accession, exports will decline and they will have we will see a negative impact. The slides you showed now is like looked like a preparatory work for the next scenario runs. Do you expect a positive impact of enlargement on Ukrainian agriculture? And one comment on your drivers of competitiveness. I think you should also take into consideration the impact of exchange developments, so exchange rate developments, which drives the gap between prices in Ukraine and outside Ukraine.
Thanks. I think, Tina, you had the first question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for mentioning this. In fact, our report definitely refers to the bio goods in general. We have biotech, bioagri, bio-based products. You're right, it should be definitely worth mentioning the biofuel products. So the point is very much taken. But if you look in a report, we hint on that. We're just not as specific.
Very short remark on that. We do have another study already in pipeline on that with Veronika Mavchan as a lead expert with the Institute of Economic Research. So we will share the results as far as we are ready with that.
Thank you. Taras, you might want to take the third question, and then I'll ask Oleg to take the 2 questions that were asked to him.
Okay. Yeah, so we didn't, in fact, actually make any estimates of the time of accession or similar, and this was actually the first step toward further in-depth analysis on the same issues. For instance, we haven't still analyzed the economic performance of these various regions, of these various farms, etc. But as indicated also in our study, we think that the regions that are more diversified, and we see also diversified in terms of production structure, in terms of commodities, in terms of farm structure, will incur less costs and naturally, yeah, will be the primary regions to show good results in the EU integration, primarily in the west of Ukraine. And they are already very similar with crop rotations, etc., to the standards of the EU already now. Yeah.
Thank you. And now, Oleg, you have 2 questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. First question from Olga. Yes, compliance cost. This is very interesting issue that has been really relatively poorly analyzed at the moment. So what I presented is just kind of a desk review of what is available at the moment, and this is really kind of the level of magnitude, I would say. And of course, it's going to be different for various farm sizes. So for the small, it could be higher. For the large one, it could be lower. I mean, so 10%. This is kind of the average. I don't know whether I answered the question completely. And then the question from Martin. Yes, Martin. So what we presented in Bonn last year, it was really kind of a limited scenario. So what we looked at it was only compliance cost. This is what I just discussed and showed, demonstrated. That brings up a little bit broader set of assumptions. So hopefully that the outcome will be different from what we demonstrated last year. Yeah, and exchange rate, yes, we can discuss it later, but I think definitely this is an important component.
Yeah, just a short remark. We should allow also for competition to deal with compliance issues. The farms are differently able, depends very much on technology, but also on management. And if we ignore the competition among the farms to deal with compliance issues, then we lose a lot of competitiveness. But if we allow the farms to really compete also to deal with challenges of the international food chains, then there are a lot of potentials to adapt, and the smart farms find smart solutions.
Thank you very much, Tina, Alphonse, Oleg, and Taras, and thanks also. Whoops. You're cutting from the next bit. Yes, but you're cutting. Olga, is fine with you?
Yeah, I mean, Taras, very shortly, please.
I will be short and fast. I think we all admire what is happening on the battlefield and front.
Yes.
How Ukrainian troops managed to find the choke points and cut the export flows of the Russian Federation, which brings good results for the European Union and Ukraine. But whether we have the similar scenario for Ukraine, because we also have our own choke points for Ukrainian farmers, which are ports, industries, which are under very severe bombing during the last half a year, and the severity of this bombing in effect is increasing. And whether we have this scenario incorporated into the analysis of how this will affect the competitiveness of Ukrainian agriculture and integration to the European Union, because if Ukrainian ports will be completely blocked and closed, what if in that case?
I don't know if somebody did such a study,
but of a comment actually that you will take into account in your next models. So in the interest of time, I will pass the floor next to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tassos. Thank you to the speakers of the first panel, and continuing with the brilliant minds today, we are moving to the second part of our discussion, or to the second panel, which is called Aligning Standards or Environmental Lens of the EU Integration, EU Accession of Ukraine. And I would like to give the floor to the Elsa Regnier, the research fellow from Institute for Sustainable Development and International Relations from Paris. Elsa, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Maybe just a trigger warning before beginning this presentation. The fact is I will present some results from a study led 2 years ago, so I don't work anymore on Ukraine and more specifically on sustainable issues. So maybe I won't be able to answer precisely to the asked. So I wanted to give 2 key messages during this presentation. The first one is the fact that Ukraine accession strengthen already ongoing dynamics that are both challenging and positive. So it doesn't create new challenges, at least from an agricultural perspective. It's something else from a political point of view, meaning the political balances and challenges in the Commission, in the Parliament. So it's another issue, but from an agricultural perspective, the key message is that it's increased ongoing dynamics, and I will explain what I mean by that. And the second key message is the fact that nothing is written in stone, nothing is determined in advance, and so it's all matter of political choices and negotiation. So next slide, please. So when I said like it's ongoing dynamics, what we see is an increase in the export and in the relationship between the EU and Ukraine since mid-2000, and it has been increased in 2016 when, with Russian embargo on agri-food Ukrainian goods, and in 2017 with the implementation of the free trade agreement between the EU and Ukraine. So this dynamics of alignment on norms is already ongoing, and also the dynamics of more free trade exchanges between the EU and Ukraine is already ongoing. So whether there is accession or not, with all the positive and the negative impacts. So I really beginning with the most, maybe not negative, but challenging impact, let's say, because they are the less pleasant. So let's talk about it first. I will take to talk about this negative dimension. I will take the French case because it has been questioned about the EU as a whole, and I will maybe take a focus on the French case. So the main fear from a farm perspective, from farmers, is the competitiveness shock with Ukraine, and the fact that Ukraine production, as it has been reminded, is really competitive. And just to give two examples, for the maize production, the cost of production in Ukraine is 97 euros for a ton. In France, it's more around 200, 240 euros for a ton. So even if we have this 10% compliance cost, it will don't close this gap. Why? Because it's also linked to the structure of agricultural, Ukrainian agricultural sectors. And at the beginning of the conversation, it was mentioned the small and medium holdings of Ukraine, but they are not those exporting to the EU, and they are not those that are from which French farmers are afraid. And for example, for beetroots, an average holding in France of beetroots is 140 hectares. In Ukraine, it's concentrated between 15 groups, and some of them are several hundreds of thousands of hectares. So the question, but as I said, there is nothing that is written in stone. So the question is, how can we make these two models coexist in the same market? And I think that's a key issue, and that's a key question that politicians will have to answer, whether there is accession or not, because as we are in a free trade area, there is already these two models cohabiting together. Now let's talk about the positive aspects. So it was already mentioned, the fact that it will lead to a gradual alignment of Ukraine's agri-food system with current EU veterinary, sanitary, and phytosanitary standards. The fact that also it will create a bigger EU-Ukrainian global food power. And there is a question of increasing the EU's protein self-sufficiency. So as we all know here, European farmers are heavily dependent on imported plant protein for feeds. EU import dependency is particularly high for soybean and soybean meal. So it's 84% and 97%. That is mainly used in some specific countries, so mainly Spain, Netherlands, but also other EU member states. And it's a good news because Ukraine is a major producer of oilseed and protein crops, as it has been said. So it's 4 million tons of soya in 2023, it was a bit less in 2024 and 2025. And according to a KSE study, it could increase up to 5.5 million tons in 2030, in comparison with European production, which is only 3 million tons. But these figures has to be put in regard with the need. So Europe imports each year 30 million tons of soybean. So Ukraine won't be enough to fix this issue. And talking about sustainability issues, we will need to produce more in Europe because it's a matter of sustainability, because when you integrate some protein crops such as soya in your rotation, you use less fertilizers. But also we will need to reduce our livestock because we cannot feed it, even with Ukraine. So to reduce our livestock sector and also to reduce the consumption of meat, because the goal is not to import more meat at the end. From a sustainability perspective on the Ukrainian side, I think there will be some other colleagues that are more relevant than I am. I would only mention the soil degradation that is threatening a significant share of Ukraine due to poor management practices. So there will need to have more crop rotation, to have less intensive systems. But I'm sure some colleagues will be better in explaining all that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elder. Yeah, you've already heard a couple of, I would say, critical points here, but wait till the discussion, please. And as the next speaker in our section, in our panel, we do have the Mr. Polinar, the Deputy Head of Unit, Economic and Sectoral Policies at DG ENEST. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Olga. Good afternoon to everybody, and many thanks for the invitation to the forum. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and shed some light on the way we see the challenges in terms of the development of the agriculture sector, but also in terms of our trade relations. I'll put this into the perspective of implementation of the free trade agreement that we have in place, and that was significantly changed last year. And it has brought into an annex a set of new standards, which are predominantly from the area of phytosanitary regulation, but they're also environmental standards. So I will go into the area of environmental standards that perhaps have been less discussed in the public, the debate that I follow, because everything is on SPS, while environmental, it seems to be a bit neglected, but it's also equally important and potentially even more expensive going into long term. I'm very happy that this was introduced by the previous speaker, who estimated the cost of full compliance to 10%, because in the presentation that I got here from my colleagues who are also in the room, I have this estimated as very high, and the preparation phase for this investment is also estimated as a very long. But the way this is set now in our free trade agreement is that this needs to be happening now. Why? Because when we agreed on the revised DCFTA, and when we increased the original quotas from 2016, although reducing from the free and open ATM measure, but still increasing in comparison to what we had initially agreed, we have also conditioned this with the meeting of these standards. And if the standards are not met by the end of 2028, the European Union reserves the right to further amend to lower the quotas. And I think that would be something very dangerous that could happen, that we would have, in a way, a clash in our relations after 3 years of implementation, because this wouldn't have been done. So these standards, we take it also very heavily on us, European Commission, especially us in DG ENEST, because in ENEST we are very much committed on guiding Ukraine towards meeting these standards, facilitating trade relations, and as the standards are fully taken from the EU acquis, also promoting, advancing accession negotiations in the area of cluster 5, but also cluster 4. So let me go into the two standards that are environmental. First is the nitrates directive, on which Ukraine is not aligned at this stage. So the nitrates directive protects European waters from agricultural pollution, lowers purification costs, and promotes sustainable practices. The aim is to reduce then the nitrate leaching into the environment, and it concerns all farmers. It requires from the legislator to define the nitrate zones, and it requires from the legislator to agree on a national plan together with the farmers and to put it into implementation. So far in this area, we have no legislative development in Ukraine that go in this direction. So we would very much hope that this starts moving and that we have something. And of course, to prevent the leaching, there needs to be new farming technique. So this will require an investment from the farmers, from the private sector. So this also needs to be prepared, and hopefully, as I said, because a lot of it depends on agreeing the targets, putting in place national action plans. This needs to be prepared between the government and between the affected farmers, so that the plans are realistic and that this money is reserved also on the balance sheets of the farmers. The second act is the Industrial Emissions Directive, as amended in 2024. So Ukraine is partially aligned with what was in place by 2024, but then it has not started putting in place the amendments that are applicable since 2024. The Industrial Emissions Act expands pollution control to cover also large livestock farms, setting lower capacity thresholds for pigs and poultry. So the alleviating circumstance here is that not all farmers, potentially members of the club of the council, will not be affected. In the European Union, these are still 38,000. Is it correct, Philip? 38,000 farms that are affected. So it's but the small producers are not affected, and if they fall under this legislation, they need to apply stricter rules on emissions of nitrogen, ammonia, and methane levels. Ukraine has started with some legislation on this, but it has not yet advanced to the latest obligations. Well, we want to see this as into a positive perspective, because meeting these standards has the potential to increase also, to modernize the farm, to increase competitiveness going into the long term. As I said, safeguarding the access to the European Union market, but then also increasing overall global competitiveness. As the ambassador said, the EU is 50% of the export market, but there is also the other 50% of the market, which I would believe is not only, it doesn't react only on the price, but would also react on the quality. So these standards are bringing in higher quality, especially when we come to concentrations of pigs and poultry. This is directly linked, for example, to animal welfare standards and to certain good practices that are not hard law obligations, but are the promotions for agriculture. So we would in a way see a certain incentive for the private sector, for the farmers, to start aligning with this. We would also see that overall this could contribute to reducing the productivity gap, which overall in Ukraine is still 20% lower than in comparison with the EU productivity. So there is a certain challenge, and following the EU standards has the capacity, has the potential to close this gap. Now, as I said, especially in the DG Enest, where I come from, we are very much committed to helping Ukraine. And we wish to invest into helping Ukraine with technical assistance projects, but not only with this. In 2024, we put into the Ukraine plan, which are policy conditionalities for disbursement of budget support, which is fungible. We put a law on prevention of industrial pollution, which covers certain aspects of permitting and penalties concerning emissions. And so the bases were adopted. So we paid a certain amount to the Ukrainian budget for starting this process. And then we have 2 dedicated technical assistance projects in place for dealing explicitly with the nitrate and with emissions directive. We have also for a project dealing with water monitoring and designation of nitrate vulnerable zones. So there is, I would say, ample technical assistance in place, but perhaps in my observation, it has not been fully used into this direction. My main message here would be that the clock is ticking towards the end of 2028, and these are complex reforms with potentially heavy investment on the side, and it would be unwise that we would come into a certain crunch time in 2028, where there would be a pressure on the Commission to go and potentially trigger a reduction of the existing agricultural quotas.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Without any further delay, we do have a third speaker with us online, Mr. Claudio Bellis, who is a scientific project officer at the Joint Research Center of European Commission. Claudio, can you hear us? Yeah, you are with us.
Yes, I do.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly. So yeah, the floor is yours. Presentation is also should be, I think, on screen. Right. Thank you. So please go on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here, and I apologize for not being able to join you in Brussels. As I would like to speak about the report on environment and climate in Ukraine that we published more or less 1 year ago, and is the result of a collaboration of several people, as you can see at the bottom of the slide. Next, please. So this is a work in which we analyze the status of several environmental topics in the first two decades of the century, which include the COVID-19 pandemic and the beginning of the military operations in Ukraine. This involved several directorates of the European Commission DG JRC, but also Ukrainian institutions, in particular the Marseille Institute for Public Health, and other experts from the University of Novi Sad. The report is available online, so you can use the QR code to download it. And yeah, going to the topics. Of course, it's not about everything about agriculture, but indeed all the things are interconnected. So I will start first talking about air quality and climate action. The regulation about air quality in Ukraine are not, at the time we did this work, were not completely aligned. Most of the pollutants were below the threshold, national threshold, but we see that in certain regions like Kiev, where PM 2.5 and PM 10 are monitored, levels are above the WHO objectives. And you can see in the map at the bottom left of the slide, the areas, which is the pink areas are those where levels are higher, which cover the city, but also the eastern part of the country. When we move to greenhouse emissions, we see that the energy sector is the most important in contribution in 2021. There has been a positive trend in reduction of greenhouse emission that reduced 62% since 1990. And nevertheless, after the pandemics, there was a temporary increase, and then, of course, the start of the military action destroy industrial and energy facilities, leading to a decrease of about 20-26% in greenhouse emissions. Nevertheless, there were other emissions created by the military operation that in the first 18 months represented 77 megatons of CO equivalent emissions. Next slide, please. When we move to forest, you probably know that Ukraine ranks among the top European countries in terms of forested areas, and 1.7 million of hectares of Ukrainian forest are affected by the military operation, about 50% of the country total forest cover. You can see on the top left of the slide the area which has a light blue background. This is the area affected by the military operation, and the red dots are the wildfires in 2022 and 2023. And what we see looking at the graph of the bottom left of the slide is that there has been an increase, particularly in 2024. There was a record time, something like 1 million hectares was burned. Not all of them were forests, most of them were non-forestal areas, and this could be also relevant for agriculture. Yes, this the impact of the environmental impact on forest is mostly due to fires, also by mismanagement, but also in part also to climate change. Next slide, please. So I'm moving to the soil, which is indeed directly connected to the topic of today. We have analyzed in this study several indicators of soil health, including nutrient mismanagement, soil acidification, soil erosion, compaction, salinization, contamination, and the effect of military operations. And what the conclusion is that erosion is the most widespread threat that affects 40% of Ukraine territory, 10 million hectares. Also, the release of toxic elements due to the military actions such as lead, mercury, and arsenics have in the future can penetrate the food chains. Since 1990, and another problem of Ukraine that was already mentioned is the nutrient mismanagement, which affects particular region that you see in the table. This has experienced a significant loss in nitrogen and phosphorus budgets that nevertheless are leached to the water. We will see later on. And this nutrient imbalance, of course, risks to impact on crop yields and the long-term fertility of soil. Next slide, please. We move to marine environment, where we see, in this case, the focus is on Black Sea, and we see in this the figure at the bottom indicates the contribution or the concentration of different pollutants. The one on the left are pesticides, and we see that there are several pesticides have high levels in the Black Sea, and this is connected to the causes. So the nutrient and contaminant overload, including microplastics, is one of the main problems of the Black Sea, and the majority of these products are coming from plant treatment products. Also, the intensive marine traffic, climate change, fishery, and invasive species are affecting the stability and the services that this kind of environment provides. Next slide, please. So, of course, I try to synthesize very in a nutshell a complex report, but I will try to share here with you main messages or most important aspects that in fact we have seen that they have made progress in Ukraine since the 2010s decade, and this has led to some positive result in meeting some environmental standards. Nevertheless, military operations in 2022 have contributed to environmental devastation and release of toxic elements that will also affect in the long term. The scarcity of reliable field data is a problem to make an assessment, and in this regard, it's important to start establishing and improving the monitoring network in order to be able to make assessment, because without data, you cannot make assessment and cannot make projections. We believe and propose in the report, if you read it more carefully with more time, so that the Ukraine plan is a pivotal instrument for the country recovery, reconstruction, and modernization that could, of course, we expect they have a potential for the contributing to the EU accession path, and this could also be in part used for promoting environmental friendly actions and let's say the development of green objectives that are already considered in the plan, and also to introduce sustainability in the reconstruction and recovery efforts, as already mentioned by the colleague from the DGNS before, saying some very specific points. With this, I conclude my presentation and ready to take questions if any.
Thank you, Claudio. Actually, thank you to all speakers, and I've already seen a couple of reactions, so please raise your hands who have, Alexander, please.
First of all, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have such a distinguished gentleman in the room speaking, giving the information, but also we have really a full room in here, which means that the topic is important and we're moving in right direction. Few things I'd like to reflect on. First and foremost, the price of the production. And this is very unfortunate for us that you see that the price of our production is so low. Why? Because I'm the head of the EU Integration Committee at UCAP, another agricultural association, and every year we have a benchmark with our producers on the costs of production, and especially given the last years, it was also the cost of the logistics, because Odessa was not properly working, and the cost that we had for logistics to other ports. So the latest I have with me in iPad is 2024, unfortunately not the recent one. But what I can tell you is that the price of production of corn, total cost per hectare in Ukraine in 2024 was approximately $800. This is per hectare, yes, and I have with the average yield we have in Ukraine, which gives us $143 per ton. And I think it's twice more than you've mentioned. No?
I mentioned 97.
Okay, so 100.
It's more or less the same.
Okay, 1.5 times more than you've mentioned, but still. And this is close to all the other crops, and this is not for the first time we hear that Ukrainian production is way cheaper than in the EU. Recent visits of French beetroot producers, how's the association called? Thank you very much. So CGB was coming to Kiev and we were welcoming there and we were having the discussion. We heard the same allegations on our side that your production is very low. You know what ended up? They told us the production cost is exactly the same. The only thing, we have lower yields and they have higher yields and they have a bit more expensive cost of production, but the level is exactly the same. If you recalculate.
Not for maize, like as you say, like you say 100 euros a ton. 143 in France it's like 243, so
yeah,
200 so it's not the same price of production, and but it's not, I didn't say it was a problem, like I said, we need to find a political answer to it, because on the price competitiveness field, like Ukraine is better than France on a lot of products, not all the products of course, so we have to analyze it to know how to answer to the farmers' worry. That is legitimate
for sure, but again, the problem is not that you said that we need to find a solution to this. It's rather than we, from time to time, hear that this is the way it is, but it's not always how it works in Ukraine. So for that, we are always inviting European stakeholders to visit Ukraine, and we are very much welcoming the fact that French also colleagues are coming, and we will have an event in Paris in September on these specific issues as well. That's one thing. The second thing about nitrogen directive and why we might have not started any move in this direction, because we have not understood even how far we are in terms of how much investments we need and what do we need to change. We have similar with the crop production products. Before anything started in the legislation process, our associations calculated how much it will cost, and right now, Peter, I know you know for sure. We have discussion inside of the country. So what could be the transitional periods, how we can move to, and what we need in order to make it faster. With the nitrogen directive, it looks like it's gonna be exactly the same. And the biggest problem is that it is even more diverse and the data is very hard to collect. But trust me, we will get to this point and we will push the ministry and the parliament in the direction that we need to make it. But again, it's always the same. We need both time and finance. And I told you, if there's no finance, we need more time. If there is some finance, it would be way easier for all of us to become an EU member state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alexandra, for your remarks. I've seen, two hands there.
Hello, my name is Igor Novitsky. I'm responsible for the young farmers in the UAC. My question to Peter, myself, I'm also the farmer. What shall we expect about Ukraine's alignment with the EU requirements on the pesticides and herbicides? Thank you. By the 2029, like how it will be like implemented? What shall we expect?
Okay, and Vyacheslav, anyway, second question.
Here is already a lot of discussion about the how nice we are, how nice our collaboration, and how we can make it better. So, and it looks really, everything looks more or less stable, like when all of us do our checkup in the doctor. It looks, brain is nice, heart is excellent, legs is perfect. Only one thing, which is today a few doctors already started to discuss, including Andrei. So about your aorta, your heart, because port, which is really important, it's a heart which moves your blood, your production in and out from Ukraine, in EU or in Ukraine or at the third market. And this is exactly calls the balance in your body, then everything balanced, including the quality of your vein. But we are today near of thrombus. And it's already happened twice, 2022, and everybody should remember what was the turbulence with our health, what was the stress for everyone, and how much money we lost. And just very near of it, Hormuz, Persian Gulf, it's also thrombus there. Can all of you to calculate how much money you lost in your pocket? How much you paid for that? Because you did not want to invest money to your medicine, to the protection before, to construct some other pipelines, let's say, to Oman or to Red Sea. Here is we have the same story. Ukraine has a serious problem with their heart, with their aorta. So it's bombing every day. If not every day, okay, enough regularly. My personal level was bombed 6 times. I think that I'm personal enemy of Putin. And it seems that the business, the port facility owners already tired last 4 years to recover everything itself. And today it's really, or it will fall down itself after a few extra bombing, massive bombing, I would say, or the business decision would be maybe better to stop, because when you don't do anything, it seems that there is not a queue of trucks around of you, not a queue of wagons, nothing to bomb. So at least the risk is much less. And if everybody will start to... Wait, shortly, so I finish already. So it seems that I'm asking, maybe we have to start to think about that, maybe to create some kind of group of doctors, of the experts, how we can create some recovery fund that really the owners can come and easy take money every day for the recovery. So, and it seems that it will give you really the stability. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will give a chance then, Peter.
Yes, and unfortunately, I will not bring the good news, because the way we have constructed our relation is that while we are negotiating, we have already agreed under the existing agreement, which is the association agreement, deep and comprehensive free trade area. We have agreed with the government of Ukraine that these standards, the pesticides, emissions, nitrates, and so on, will be met, so that you cannot use pesticides anymore, and you have to have legislation on nitrates aligned with the EU by the end of 2028, which I assume it is before the end of accession negotiations. So meaning that there cannot be transition periods, because you will have met these standards by the end of 2028. In case you will not have met, the government of Ukraine, which has co-signed this agreement, has agreed that the European Union can propose reduction of the existing agricultural quotas. So there is a very strong incentive for the government of Ukraine to start putting this legislative process in place and start agreeing with you what kind of investment will be made. The government of Ukraine has equally access to the Ukraine facility, which is bringing new money into the Ukrainian system, topped up recently with 90 billion. And we would be very happy on the side of the European Commission that the government would propose this and these reforms under the Ukraine plan. But the government is also not proposing these reforms because it's very dangerous, because in case these reforms are not met, payments are deducted. So in the last round of negotiations, because when we were topping it up for the new money from the 90 billion, some of these kind of delicate reforms, which we know that are very much needed because we have linked our relations to this gradual integration, for example, SEPA or this and these standards, they are not there, or CBAM, ETS, to put another area, they are not there. And this means that at one stage, this will not be met, and this will prevent further integration into the EU market. Either the quota is reduced or now the steel and the fertilizers companies, they have to pay the CBAM levy at the border. But in case there was a Ukrainian emission trading system in place, there was a Ukrainian fund, everybody would be paying to the Ukrainian budget. Now, the companies, Ukrainian companies, are paying to the EU budget, which I think it's very unfortunate. It's not something that we have wished for, but it's something that has been announced years in advance. And we have a very similar situation now. We are advancing. We have agreed in 2025 that by the end of 2028, this needs to be done. The government has agreed to it. We really count that the government would deliver on this, and we are absolutely willing to put all of our financial instruments at the disposal, because we would not like to have this escalating and coming at a situation where we'll be under pressure. It's not automatic, just to say that these quotas need to be deducted, but it is possible.
And to the question of the our young men.
Yes, it's part of the package.
Okay.
It's nitrates, pesticides.
Okay.
So unfortunately.
You have a question. Very, very short one. I can allow only because we still have only like.
I'm a French guy. I'm from the EU, but I like to underline the toll of a war. I mean, it's like there is a kind of underestimation here of what it means, a total war on the front, an attrition war, and the consequence in terms of organization, governance, and so forth. I mean, we have to be realistic, understanding what a transition means. I mean, hundreds of men die per whatever time. I mean, it's hearing that there is a kind of ideological approach, in my view, is quite risky on the long run. It's just a personal citizen remark. I'm quite amazed also.
Great. Sorry, one of the speakers, Eliza, had to leave earlier. So if we are done, I think that two remarks before I give the floor to Andriy to conclude. My own conclusions. First of all, as you've seen from the discussion, we are not afraid of the, we don't have here only rosy reports that everything is going to be fine and everything is all right in the process of the EU accession. So I think the next events are going to be even more interesting, focusing on different concrete areas. And the second conclusion, Emmanuel, it's 2 hours. It's just not enough. It's clearly not enough what I see from today's discussion. Andriy, what have you learned? What would you like to say in the end?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much to all the experts, because for the first time since 2 years, I'm coming to Brussels. I hear real discussion of experts. I still see that we have a lot of myths in Brussels, especially about Ukrainian production costs. And unfortunately, this lady left us. But I will tell all of you, we have black soils, very fertile soils. But it will be a surprise for you. Black soil is not working without water. So more than half of Ukraine, we have not enough of rains for many years. So even so, we have 3 meters of black soil, it will not work. And in order for us to become a member of EU, first of all, we need to survive in this war. And actually, this war is changing. The innovation cycle of the war is 40 days. And kill zone, which I mentioned, today is 100 kilometers. It means that farmers, thousands of farmers who are operating on the millions of hectares of land are risking their lives. And we have farmers who are killed. If the farmer is killed, his family is not supported by the government. If the soldier is killed on the battlefield, then his family can get some support. And the kill zone is increasing. By the end of the year, it will be doubled. And we don't have any solution for that. Second issue was already raised by our colleagues about export. We do, as farmers, we remember 22-23, when all prices were down and a lot of grain was spoiled on the fields. Because if the ports will be stopped, then it will be again disaster. And that is like for us, priority number 1 is to survive. When it comes to joining EU on a farm level, I cannot talk a lot about geopolitical things. I like Tas's expression that it's a moving target. And today I did not get answer for my question is what is our common cathedral thinking for Ukrainian and EU joint agriculture in future? We talk about standards, we need to adjust standards, but what will be a standard it's according to a new CAP, for example? I don't know. This targets is moving and we need to understand what we as a farmers need to pay for that. And I really hope that the BRD will help us to finance this study, and we need the experts here to help us to conduct the study to understand how much every individual farmer needs to pay for EU integration, because we don't know that. We are not against standards. We understand that under EU roof, we cannot live on Ukrainian rules. We understand that completely. But as my colleagues mentioned, we are joining EU as the biggest country with an extremely strong agricultural sector. We are coming to EU with our markets, which we don't want to lose. And our competitors are not European farmers. Our competitors are Russians who weaponized grain. Like Chinese weaponized trade, Russians weaponized grain. And they don't I don't think that commodity is not the right word anymore due to all these geopolitical things. So we need to think about that if we follow your standards, okay, but how then to compete with Russians in global south? How to compete in Africa, in Asia? I do not have answer on that. And we need to find this answer together, as you mentioned today, about protein possibility, biomass, about processing possibilities in Ukraine, which are possible because we mentioned 80% of what we produce is raw material. And we need this technology. You have this technology in EU. You are great in processing, in added value. And hopefully the war will finish soon and you can come and help us to develop our processing industry as well. So a lot of questions, but cathedral thinking is something I really like to ask all of you to think about. Because, Peter, I understand that you're right, you push on our government, but I want to protect our government as well. We have the other problems today, and by the end of 2028, there is no guarantee that the war will be stopped today at that time. So that's please take also into consideration.
Absolutely. I mean, we really want to support Ukraine, but of course, we are the European Commission of the European Union. We also created this under the certain influence of EU farmers, of course, as you know. So we are also, as you are combining multiple goals, we are also combining multiple goals. And let's have these conversations in a very transparent and honest tone. There are still many years to come, and there might be solution in our cathedral, if I say, because it will have to be complex. Yeah. So it's better to discuss early and honestly than to discuss in a rush, because I think what was agreed in 2025 was a bit rushed.
Since we have with us Ukrainian-German political dialogue, I would like to refer to Germany, because you remember, my dream is when we join EU that Ukrainian farmers and European farmers are happy as East and Western Germans when Berlin Wall was broken. We need both to be happy, and that's, I think, a job of experts, not of politics, because when politics will do it, then Russian will play with all of them, and we will end not in the right place altogether.
Andriy, you mentioned government. I mean, just 1 minute. We do have here with us in person the representative of the Ukrainian government, of the ministry, so Mr. Alexei Pinchuk. Alexei, please.
So thank you, colleagues, for fruitful discussion today, and thank you for APD and also ELO that joined us today. For me, very important that today we have here all Ukrainian Agricultural Association here, because they represent small and medium ones, and I personally believe that they were not represented enough in their voices in Brussels during last years, but right now I hope we will break this. But what I just wanted to say, first of all, as Mr. Vysotsky was unavailable to continue to stay with us, I will represent here the ministry and I believe position of government of Ukraine. And what I want to say, we know how difficult it will be for us to get all the standards that we are discussing today. We are doing our best to fulfill our obligations that Peter mentioned we need to do before 2028. I'm quite sure we will do it. Why we are still so slow on it? Because we have Mr. Andries de Koens as representative of small medium ones. We have different farmers, and we are trying to find a model which will do the less harm to them, but at the same time will provide some mechanism inside the Ukraine how we will implement it and be in line with EU standards. And I believe it's like our own decision on how we should do it. We have a deadline and we have some plan on it. Also, I wanted to mention the same that Mr. De Koen said. We had a lot of talks today on chirp use, on standards, etc. It's very important discussion, but we have, as you already mentioned, we have DCFTA agreement. We have obligations which we need to fulfill to continue, and I hope even to improve our trade relationship after 2028. And I think it should be separate technical discussions, while we need to pay more attention right now on this common understanding, as Mr. De Koen said, on how we will live under the single market. So I consider this is a very important step, but it's a little bit in the past, and right now we need to plan how we will live under a single market altogether. Because if we will fulfill all our obligations, it's obviously we are coming to Ukrainian agricultural sector coming to you. That's why we already discussed it during other meetings. We want to welcome you to think all together. First of all, to define which are the vulnerabilities, or I wouldn't call them vulnerabilities. I would call them some concerns of European farmers about Ukraine entering the EU, because mainly they have better technologies, better understanding of how to cultivate, and I don't think they will be harmed so much as they think about it. So we need to identify it, we need to discuss it, and we need to do steps from both sides, from EU side and from Ukrainian side, just to find a compromise when every farmer will be comfortable, because obviously it's also a political issue as well. So if we speak about Ukraine Facility Fund, it's true, we have funds and we can deliver something just to promote agricultural market, but at the same time we are having the war. And the biggest part of those money goes directly into budget to cover our expenses, not the expenses on supporting small and medium ones to prepare the standards and to invest into their productions to be compatible with these regulations. So we also understand that that's why we are doing it a little bit slowly, on your opinion, but as I told, we know the deadline. So we as representatives of government are doing all possible and sometimes impossible to implement European legislation as soon as it's possible. But we also should understand that small and medium one will, from Ukraine, will pay a big price for implementing this regulation. So thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Alexei. Yeah, with that, I think we are already, no? Okay.
Just one last sentence. So no, yeah, we overrun the time. Don't worry, that's yes on us. So just thank you very much, everyone, for your time and for staying with us. More to come. I think that we have a lot of ideas for next meetings. So we will continue in that group, and so we will keep you posted. I do hope to meet in Brussels, in Kiev also. That would be really great. And don't forget that we'll be doing also our next event in Vilnius before the Lithuanian presidency, and Ukraine will be one of the topics we'll be also discussing there. So just to bring you up to the speed, you will all receive an email with all the reports, all the slides, everything. We do recommend, in addition, if you have something to share, don't hesitate to send it to us. We will still put it, in this group at least of interest. And I do hope to see you soon to discuss next topics. Thank you very much.